The morning the letter arrived, the air smelled like rain, but not the kind that cleans things, the kind that feels heavy like something coming. Emma Reed stood on her front porch barefoot, clutching a coffee mug that had long gone cold. The letter trembled in her hand, the cheap paper already softening in the mist. Notice of emergency relocation, fire damage risk, it read in bold black letters. Her landlord's signature, Robert Hale, was scribbled below. A man she'd spoken to only twice in the year she'd lived in the little duplex at the end of Maple Court. Emma blinked at the words, her throat tightening. There hadn't been any fire, no smoke, no alarms, nothing. But the letter was official-looking, city seal, stamped, dated. And it said she had 7 days to vacate for urgent structural safety inspection following fire exposure. She didn't understand. Inside, her husband, Jack, was on the phone with the power company, arguing over another late fee. The bills had been stacking higher than the kitchen counter lately. Between his construction job slowing down and her part-time shifts at the daycare, they were barely hanging on. Emma pushed open the door. "Jack, you need to see this." He sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Can it wait, Em? They're saying we missed." "It's from Robert, he's saying there was a fire." Jack frowned. "A what?" She handed him the paper. He skimmed it, his eyes narrowing. "There's no way, this is garbage." He grabbed his keys, jaw tightening. "I'm going over there." Emma reached out. "Wait, maybe we should call." But he was already out the door. Robert Hale lived 3 houses down in the same subdivision he managed. His house looked like it had been plucked out of a glossy magazine, manicured lawn, trimmed hedges, spotless white siding. Jack stomped up the driveway, his work boots splashing through puddles. He banged on the door. It opened slower than he expected. Robert stood there in a black sweater, his posture calm, too calm. "Jack," he said evenly, "I assume this is about the notice." "You're damn right it is. What fire?" Robert raised an eyebrow. "The one last week. You didn't smell it. The maintenance crew reported electrical scorch marks near your attic insulation." Jack scoffed. "That's bull. We were home all weekend. No smell, no smoke." Robert sighed as if speaking to a child. "It's not always visible. The city inspector will be by next Monday. It's for your own safety." Jack took a step closer. "We've got nowhere to go." Robert's eyes flickered, then softened. "I understand, but this is out of my hands. The insurance company's already flagged the property. I'll try to expedite repairs, okay?" Jack clenched his fists. "We pay on time, you can't just." "Jack," Robert cut in smoothly, "I don't want to evict you, I just need you out while they assess. It's standard." The way he said it made it sound like mercy. But as Jack turned to leave, he caught something through the doorway, a faint reflection in the entry mirror behind Robert. A man wearing a hard hat and carrying a clipboard standing in the hallway. Except the clipboard had no papers on it. And the man wasn't wearing an ID. When Jack blinked, the man stepped out of view. Robert closed the door. That night the rain turned into a full storm. Emma and Jack sat on the couch with their daughter Mia, who was coloring quietly under a blanket fort. The lights flickered twice. Emma whispered, "Do you think he's lying?" Jack stared at the notice again. "Something's off. I checked the attic. There's no burn, no smell, nothing." "Then why fake a fire?" Jack didn't have an answer. But the next morning when they woke, a yellow tape stretched across their front lawn. Caution, do not enter fire damage zone. Someone had put it there overnight. A white van was parked across the street with Hale Property Services printed on the side. 2 men in reflective vests were unloading metal detectors and scanners. Emma ran outside. "Excuse me, who told you to be here?" One of them didn't even look up. "Inspection order signed by Hale." She stared at them, heart pounding. The men weren't city employees, their uniforms had no logos, no badges, and one of them, she noticed, had a cigarette tucked behind his ear. Jack stormed out. "You're trespassing, get off my property." They ignored him. Robert arrived minutes later in his SUV, waving calmly. "Jack, Emma, please, this is standard protocol." "Those aren't inspectors," Jack snapped. Robert smiled faintly. "They're subcontractors, cheaper, faster. Look, the building might have taken internal heat damage from an old wiring surge. You wouldn't see it, but the structure could still be compromised." Emma shook her head. "So why not show us proof, a report, anything?" Robert's smile faltered. "You'll get your documentation after the inspection." And with that, he turned away. That night, Jack found the first clue. While taking out the trash, he noticed the van's license plate was covered in mud on purpose. He brushed it off. The number wasn't local, it belonged to another state. He took a picture. Inside, Emma sat at the table with her laptop open, the notice beside her. "I looked up the city code. If there's actual fire damage, the landlord has to provide hotel compensation or relocation funds." Robert didn't mention any. Jack nodded. "Because there's no damn fire." He hesitated, lowering his voice. "And those inspectors, I think they're just his guys. Maybe he's trying to get us out so he can remodel, jack up rent." Emma's eyes widened. "That's illegal." Jack exhaled. "So's forging a fire report." The next morning, their neighbor Mrs. Green, an elderly widow who'd lived there 20 years, knocked on their door. "I saw them checking your attic vents," she said softly. "I thought it was strange. Robert said there was smoke damage, but I didn't see any smoke, and my house shares a wall with yours." Emma frowned. "He told you that?" Mrs. Green nodded, "Said he might have to extend the repairs to my unit too, but I checked with the fire department. They've got no record of a call from this street." Emma felt her stomach drop. "Don't trust that man," Mrs. Green whispered. "He's been buying out tenants, one by one, then raising the rent double." By evening, Emma couldn't take it anymore. She called the city inspector's office directly. A woman named Linda Harper picked up. "Hi, this is Emma Reed, tenant at 48B Maple Court. I got a notice about fire damage." A pause. "I'm sorry," Linda said. "I don't see any record of an inspection order for that address." Emma's voice trembled. "But the notice says it's from your office. Can you email it to me?" She did. Another pause. "Mrs. Reed," Linda said carefully, "this document's not ours. The seal is a fake." Emma's blood ran cold. "Who sent this to you?" "Our landlord," she whispered. "Then I suggest you call the police," Linda said, "because someone's committing fraud." Jack was already packing when she hung up. "So what now? You think cops will believe us over him? He's got money, lawyers." Emma interrupted. "What if we record him, catch him admitting it?" Jack nodded slowly. "We'll bait him, ask for proof again, see how he reacts." They set up Emma's phone on the kitchen counter, camera angled toward the front door. When Robert arrived the next afternoon, Jack pretended to be cooperative. "So we'll pack up, but we just need the official report first, to show our insurance." Robert hesitated just a flicker, then smiled. "Of course, I'll bring it tomorrow, you can trust me." He turned to leave. But as he did, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, forgot to mute his voice. "Yeah," he muttered under his breath, thinking no one heard. "They'll be out by Friday, just make sure the new buyers wire the deposit." The door clicked shut behind him. Jack and Emma looked at each other. New buyers. He was selling the property. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. The storm had cleared, but the wind still howled through the cracked vent near her window. Every creak sounded like footsteps, every flicker like warning. Mia was fast asleep, hugging her stuffed rabbit. Emma sat by the window, staring at Robert's house. A light was on in his study. A shadow moved behind the curtains, long, deliberate. Her phone buzzed with a new email notification. It was from an address she didn't recognize, truthwatch@postmail.net. The subject line, "You're not crazy, he's done this before." Attached was a single photo. It showed another duplex, same layout, same developer, the roof blackened with fake scorch marks. The caption read, "He uses a contractor named Melton. Look for the name Hale Property Services. They're not real inspectors, they're demolition workers." Emma's hands shook. She clicked reply, but the message bounced. The address didn't exist. Outside, across the street, the white van's headlights blinked once, then went dark. The next morning, things escalated. Emma woke to pounding on the door. It was the two inspectors. They carried tools, crowbars, drills, clipboards. "Order to begin removal of compromised materials," one said flatly. "You need to step outside." Jack blocked the doorway. "You're not tearing down my house." One of them smirked. "You can leave the easy way or the hard way." Emma grabbed her phone and dialed 911. But before she could finish, Robert's SUV pulled up again. He got out, waving his hands like a savior. Everyone calmed down, we're following safety protocols. The inspectors lowered their tools, pretending to be compliant. Robert turned to Emma, you're making this harder than it needs to be, let me handle this. She glared at him, you're selling our home, aren't you? His eyes hardened, that's none of your business. Jack stepped forward, you lied about a fire, you forged documents, that's fraud. Robert's smile cracked, revealing the predator beneath. You think anyone going to take your word over mine? You're months behind on utilities, I've got paperwork that says your unit's unsafe. You'll be out by Friday one way or another. He leaned in close, some people just don't belong in this neighborhood. Then he turned and walked away, leaving his men smirking in the doorway. Emma's hands trembled, she'd never felt so small, so trapped. But as Robert drove off, something caught her eye in his backseat. A folder red with her name written on the tab. He wasn't just kicking them out. He was keeping files on them. That night Jack made a decision. We can't wait for help, he said. If the cops don't believe us, we'll find proof ourselves. He went out to the garage, grabbed his flashlight and nodded at Emma. Come on. They slipped out the back door, across the lawn toward Robert's house. The light in his study was off now, his car gone. Jack picked the side gate's lock with a screwdriver. They crept toward the basement window, slightly open. Emma's pulse hammered in her ears. Jack, this is breaking in. He's breaking the law too, Jack whispered. We need evidence. They slid through the narrow, opening into the dark basement. The air was cold, metallic. The faint hum of a dehumidifier filled the silence. Emma's flashlight beam swept across boxes labeled Tenant FILES. She froze. There were at least a dozen, each labeled with names and addresses, families, couples, singles, all marked VACATED, fire risk. And at the top of the pile, read Emma and Jack. Inside, photos of their home, their car, even Mia's bedroom window. Emma's breath hitched, he's been watching us. Jack's voice shook, this guy's unhinged. Then Emma noticed something else, a second folder underneath. Contract, Hale Property to Birchwood Developments. She flipped it open. There it was, sale contingent upon tenant removal, projected profit $2.3 million. Robert wasn't protecting them. He was clearing them out to sell the whole block. And as they realized the scale of it, a noise upstairs made them freeze. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, coming down the stairs. Jack killed the flashlight. A beam of light swept across the basement, a flashlight not theirs. Then a voice calm and cold. I told you not to make this harder than it needed to be. Emma clutched Jack's arm. Robert Hale was standing at the bottom step. And in his hand it was a gun. The sound of the rain outside had vanished, or maybe it was still there, muffled by the pounding of Emma's heart. Robert Hale's silhouette filled the bottom of the staircase, his flashlight cutting through the dark like a blade. The gun in his hand gleamed under the beam. For a moment nobody spoke. Jack's breath came in shallow bursts. His eyes darted toward Emma, then to the old wooden shelves stacked with dusty paint cans. If he lunged right, maybe he could reach one. Robert's voice broke the silence, calm, controlled, almost friendly. You shouldn't be here. He took another step down, shoes creaking against the concrete. Emma swallowed hard, we just wanted to understand why you're lying to us. Robert tilted his head, amused. Lying, no, I'm protecting you from yourselves. By pointing a gun at us, Jack snapped. Robert sighed, you think the world's fair, you think I built all this by playing fair. His voice hardened, eyes glinting in the flashlight beam. You people don't get it, this neighborhood it's rotting, old families, cheap renters, investors want clean property, I'm doing them a favor. Emma's voice trembled, you forged city documents. Robert smiled faintly, forged, no, recreated, they don't move fast enough so I helped the process along. He stepped closer, you were supposed to be gone by now, you just had to dig, didn't you? Jack gritted his teeth. You're not getting away with this. Robert's finger tightened on the trigger, I already have. Then the faintest sound, a car door slamming outside. Robert froze. He flicked his flashlight off. Stay quiet, he hissed. If anyone asks, you tell them we're doing repairs. Emma's stomach twisted. She recognized that sound, Mrs. Green's car. From the small basement window, a shadow passed her neighbor walking toward the porch, holding an umbrella. She was coming to check on them. Robert turned toward the stairs, gun still in hand. Jack made his move. He grabbed a paint can from the shelf and hurled it. It hit Robert square in the shoulder, the flashlight flying from his grip. The gun fired deafening sharp sparks flashing in the dark. Emma screamed, the bullet ricocheted off a pipe. Steam hissed, filling the air with scalding vapor. Jack lunged, slamming into Robert's chest. They tumbled up the stairs, crashing into the basement door. The gun clattered across the floor. Robert snarled, shoving Jack back. "You idiot." Emma scrambled toward the weapon, fingers shaking, but Robert kicked it under the washer. Then came a knock at the front door. "Emma, Jack, it's Mrs. Green, are you home?" Robert froze, breathing hard. Then, in a heartbeat, he composed himself, smoothing his hair, straightening his sweater. He looked at them with cold, steady eyes. "Not a word, you'll regret it." He opened the door just a crack. "Oh, Mrs. Green, everything's fine, just fixing a pipe leak in the basement." Her voice trembled. "I thought I heard shouting." Robert smiled tightly. "Water burst, you know how these old pipes are." Emma stood frozen behind him, blood pounding in her ears. Mrs. Green's eyes flicked past Robert and met Emma's. For 1 second their eyes locked, and in that second Mrs. Green saw the fear. Robert closed the door. But Mrs. Green didn't leave. 10 minutes later, after Robert left, promising to check back tomorrow, Jack and Emma collapsed onto the couch, shaking. Jack whispered, "He's insane, we need to go to the police now." Emma nodded, but her mind was spinning. "He'll deny everything, he'll say we broke into his house, we need proof, something irrefutable." Jack rubbed his face. "Then we find it, there's more in that basement, those files, those contracts, if we can get copies." Emma's voice broke. "He had a gun, Jack." "I know. He would have killed us." Jack looked toward the window, jaw tight. "That's why we finish this, because he'll do it again to someone else." The next morning before dawn, Emma woke to the sound of footsteps outside. She crept to the window. 2 men in dark jackets were unloading wooden boards from a truck, boarding up their windows. She ran to the door. "What are you doing?" One of the men handed her a paper. "Emergency quarantine order, property condemned until further notice." Emma tore it open and froze, the seal again. Same fake emblem, same typeface. She shouted, "Who told you to do this?" The man hesitated. "Robert Hale." Jack appeared behind her, gripping his phone. "We're filming this, you touch that window and you'll be charged with trespassing." The men exchanged looks, then stepped back. "You got until noon," one said. "After that, the boss said we come back with demolition clearance." They left. Emma's hands were trembling. "Noon, Jack, that's in 4 hours." Jack nodded grimly. "Then we use every second." They started digging. In the attic, under insulation, Jack found something strange, a charred plank of wood, half burnt but clearly placed there. The scorch marks were too neat, too isolated. Emma whispered, "He planted evidence." Jack took photos, bagged the plank in a trash bag. Then they searched outside. Behind the garbage bins near the alley, Emma spotted tire tracks, the same pattern as the white van's tires, and a crushed cigarette butt with the same brand one of the fake inspectors smoked. "Everything ties back to him," Jack said. Emma nodded. "We just need someone to listen." They went straight to the local police station. Officer Calder, tall and tired-looking, listened with half-interest as they laid out their story, the forged documents, the planted evidence, the gun. When Emma showed him the fake notice, he frowned. "This seals off," he admitted, "but it's not exactly a federal crime to mess up paperwork." Jack's patience snapped. He pointed a gun at us. Calder leaned back. "Did anyone see that?" Emma hesitated. "No, but..." "Any proof?" "We were recording, but the video cut out. He knocked my phone." Calder sighed. "Look, folks, I can file a report, but unless you've got footage or witnesses, there's not much we can do. Maybe take this to civil court." Jack slammed his fist on the counter. "He's threatening our lives and you're telling us to file paperwork." Calder's expression hardened. "Watch your tone." Emma tugged Jack's arm, whispering, "Let's go." They left, furious, helpless, and more alone than ever. Back home, Mrs. Green was waiting on their porch, holding a folded piece of paper. I did some digging, she said quietly. You were right, Robert's been buying properties through a shell company. He forces tenants out, fakes safety violations, then sells to developers under different names. Emma's eyes widened. How do you know this? Mrs. Green smiled sadly. Because he tried it with my niece in another town. She lost everything. She handed them the paper. It was a property transfer record. Hale Property Right Arrow Silverbrook Investments, dated just 2 weeks prior. Jack nodded. That's him, that's the link. Emma's eyes filled with hope. We can take this to the press, someone will listen. Mrs. Green's gaze flicked toward the street. Do it fast, he's watching. Across the road, Robert's SUV idled, engine running. That night they packed quietly, clothes, laptop, phone, chargers. Emma tucked Mia's stuffed rabbit into her backpack. We'll stay with my sister until this is over. Jack nodded, glancing through the blinds. He's still there. The SUV hadn't moved. Then a knock, 3 sharp raps. Emma froze. Jack whispered, don't answer. Another knock, louder. Then a voice, calm, controlled. You can't run from a fire. Emma's blood ran cold. The doorknob rattled. Jack grabbed a wrench from the counter. Then silence. He looked through the peephole, nobody there. But when he opened the door, a small metal canister rolled inside. Smoke exploded into the room, thick, acrid, choking. Emma screamed, grabbing Mia and running toward the back door. Jack coughed, eyes burning, the fire alarm wailed. They stumbled out into the backyard as flames erupted from the living room window. The entire front of the duplex was engulfed. By the time the fire department arrived, it was too late. The house was gone. Emma sat on the curb, wrapped in a blanket, watching the last pieces of their home turn to ash. Robert stood across the street, hands in his pockets, speaking quietly to an officer. Jack's jaw tightened. He did this. Emma whispered, he burned it to make it real. The firefighter walked over holding a clipboard. We'll need to do a full report, ma'ams, but it looks like it started near the kitchen. Electrical malfunction, maybe. Jack barked a laugh. Yeah, sure it did. The firefighter frowned. You think otherwise? Jack pointed at Robert. Ask him. The man followed his gaze. Robert was talking to Officer Calder, who nodded slowly like they'd met before. Jack's voice broke. He's in on it. Emma gripped his arm. Jack, don't. But Jack was already moving, crossing the street, shouting, you set us up, you torched our house. Robert didn't flinch. Careful, Jack, you're making a scene. Jack lunged, but Calder grabbed him. That's enough. You're protecting him, Jack yelled. You're part of this. Calder shoved him back toward the curb. Go cool off before I book you for obstruction. Robert smiled faintly. Maybe next time you'll listen. Then he turned and walked away, slipping into his SUV. Emma's hands shook. He's untouchable. Jack stared at the flames reflected in his eyes. Not for long. They checked into a cheap motel that night, their clothes still smelling of smoke. Mia slept between them, clutching her rabbit. Emma scrolled through her phone, replaying everything, the fake emails, the contracts, the threats. Then she froze. A new message, no sender. Subject line, he's cleaning up loose ends. Attached a photo. It was their house, burned to its frame. And standing in front of it, Robert. Behind him a shadow. A man in a firefighter's jacket, Calder. Emma whispered, he's not just bribing them, he's using them. Jack looked up, then we expose them all. He opened his laptop. If the cops won't help, the press will, or social media. He uploaded every file, every picture, every recording, posted it all under the title. Our landlord faked a fire and tried to kill us. Within an hour it was already spreading. Hundreds of comments, dozens of shares. And then a knock on their motel door. Emma's pulse jumped. Jack. He pressed a finger to his lips. The knock came again, 3 slow taps. He peeked through the blinds, a dark SUV parked outside. Roberts. He turned back to Emma, get Mia out the window. She obeyed, heart hammering, pulling Mia through the bathroom window into the alley. Jack grabbed his phone and hit record. The door burst open. Robert stepped in, face shadowed, voice calm. You shouldn't have done that, Jack. Jack raised his phone, smile for the camera. Robert's jaw tightened. You think anyone believes your internet fairy tales? The moment the insurance report goes through, this'll look like negligence, your fault. He took a step closer. You'll be buried under lawsuits before anyone figures it out. Jack whispered, you'll burn for this. Robert smiled, I already did. Then headlights flashed outside. A police cruiser pulled in, sirens silent. Officer Calder stepped out. Robert relaxed, good you came. Calder's voice was cold, I told you to leave it alone, Hale. Robert blinked, what? Calder raised his gun. You've gone too far. The air in the motel room was thick with tension. The sound of the rain outside mixed with the hum of the flickering neon sign through the window, a dull red pulse that seemed to match the rhythm of Jack's heartbeat. Robert Hale stood near the door, his hands half raised, eyes flicking between Jack and the officer now pointing a gun at him. Officer Calder's voice was low, steady. I told you to stop, Hale, I told you not to bring me into this mess. Robert sneered, don't turn on me now, Calder, you were in on it from the start, you got paid. Calder's jaw tightened, that was before you started burning houses with people inside. Jack's breath caught, you knew. Calder didn't look at him, I didn't know it would go this far. Robert's laugh was bitter, oh, don't play the hero now, you think anyone will believe your conscience suddenly grew back. The two men faced each other, corruption cracking in the air like lightning before a storm. Jack's phone was still recording, lying face down on the table, camera quietly rolling. Emma and Mo were outside in the alley, crouched behind a dumpster. Emma held her daughter close, rain dripping down her face as she stared at the motel window, watching faint silhouettes move behind the curtains. Inside, Calder spoke again. You've got one chance, Hale, turn yourself in, we can work something out. Robert's smirk deepened. You think I'm stupid, you think I don't know you'll pin this all on me, the forged documents, the bribes, the shell companies, we both go down or nobody does. He reached slowly into his coat. Calder's voice sharpened, don't. Robert pulled out a small flash drive, dangling it by the chain. Every file, every property you helped me clear, every payout, I kept receipts. Calder's eyes darkened. Robert's smile widened, I hand this to the feds and you're finished. Then in a heartbeat, Calder fired. The flash lit the room, the sound shattered the silence. Robert stumbled backward, hitting the dresser, the flash drive clattered to the floor. He slid down, blood blooming across his chest, eyes wide in disbelief. You idiot. Calder lowered the gun, chest heaving. Jack stared frozen, you shot him. Calder looked at him coldly, you didn't see anything. Jack's voice trembled, the hell I didn't, I recorded the whole thing. Calder's head snapped toward the phone. He lunged for it. Jack grabbed the chair, swinging it. It hit Calder's arm, sending the gun skidding under the bed. The two men crashed into the wall, grappling. Jack swung again, but Calder caught his wrist, slamming him against the table. The phone slid to the floor, screen cracked but still recording. Jack gasped for breath, you'll never get away with this. Calder snarled, you think anyone cares, it's your word against mine, and your house already burned down. He raised his fist. A loud bang. Calder froze, looked down. A bloodstain spread across his sleeve. He turned slowly. Robert Hale, barely alive, slumped against the dresser, was holding the gun he'd taken back from the floor. His hand trembled, but his eyes were still sharp. Never threaten me, Robert whispered. Calder dropped to his knees, then fell forward unmoving. Jack staggered back, chest heaving, staring at the two men, one dying, one dead. Robert coughed, blood staining his teeth. He looked up at Jack, a crooked smile tugging at his mouth. You wanted proof, now you've got it. Jack stared in horror, you're insane. Robert's voice weakened, you'll find the rest under the floorboards, basement, files, blue box. His head slumped sideways, the light in his eyes went out. Jack stood there for a long moment, the motel's buzzing neon humming like an electric ghost. Then he grabbed the flash drive, the phone, and ran. Outside, Emma's heart leapt as Jack burst through the side door. His shirt was splattered with blood, his face pale. She clutched Matuto, Jack, what happened? He shook his head, we have to go now. They drove through the storm in silence. The flash drive lay on the dashboard, tiny and silver but heavy as a loaded gun. When they reached the police station again, a different one, 2 towns over, Jack walked in soaked to the bone. I have evidence, he said, voice steady. Names, contracts, everything, 2 men dead, one was a cop. The desk sergeant blinked. What are you talking about? Jack dropped the flash drive onto the counter. This is everything. The sergeant hesitated, then took it. Wait here. It took hours, statements, questions, more questions. By sunrise, Emma sat in the waiting room, Ma asleep on her lap. A detective stepped out, tired but focused. Mrs. Reed, we've reviewed the drive, it checks out. There's documentation, forged inspection reports, payout records, transfers to multiple accounts. Hale and Officer Calda were working a property fraud ring for over 3 years. Emma felt dizzy, so it's over. The detective nodded slowly. For now, but you should know this will go federal, there may be others involved. Jack ran a hand through his hair. Others. The detective's voice lowered. Developers, investors, people with money. Hale wasn't the head, he was the middleman. Emma's chest tightened. So this goes deeper. The detective nodded. Much deeper. 3 weeks passed. They stayed with Emma's sister in another county, trying to rebuild some kind of normal. The news spread fast. Corrupt landlord scheme exposed after deadly motel shutout. Their names were kept out of the headlines, but the story spread everywhere. Public outrage, investigations, subpoenas. One night, Emma sat on the porch with Jack, watching the sunset turn the sky orange. He whispered, "We did it, we stopped him." Emma nodded, but her eyes were distant. "It still doesn't feel over." He looked at her. "You mean Calda's network?" She hesitated. "That and something else, the email, the one that warned me. He's done this before. No one ever found who sent it." Jack frowned. "Probably some whistleblower." Emma's gaze drifted to the horizon. Maybe someone still watching. A month later, a letter arrived. Plain envelope, no return address. Inside, a single photo. It showed the burned remains of their old duplex. But in the corner, just barely visible, a man's figure standing among the ashes. Not Robert, not Calda. Someone else. The back of the photo had 2 words written in neat, black ink. Phase 2. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She went outside, standing under the quiet hum of the streetlights, the air still warm from the day. Her phone buzzed. Another anonymous email. Subject: you thought it ended. No body text, just a link. She clicked it. It opened a live security feed, grainy footage of a construction site. Her old neighborhood, Maple Court. New buildings were already going up, gleaming white walls, brand new windows. And a large banner. Future home of Birchwood Residences, luxury townhomes. Emma's stomach twisted. They hadn't stopped the project, only the men running it. The machine kept moving. The next morning, Jack found her sitting at the kitchen table, eyes hollow, the photo lying beside her coffee mug. He said softly, "We can't keep living in this. They'll rebuild, sell, move on, let it go." Emma looked at him. "You think people like Hale just vanish? Someone replaces them. Someone always replaces them." He sighed. "We did what we could." She shook her head. "Not yet." That afternoon, Emma drove back to Maple Court. The road was blocked by chain-link fencing and construction zone signs. She parked a block away, heart pounding. Through the gaps in the fence, she saw the foundation of their old duplex being dug up. Workers in hard hats moved back and forth. And near the center, a man in a dark suit talking into a phone. When he turned slightly, Emma froze. It was the same man from the photo. She pulled out her phone, zooming in. He wore a pin on his lapel, a small silver insignia that read Birchwood Holdings. Emma whispered to herself, so it was never about one landlord, it's the company. The man glanced around, then his gaze landed right on her. For a brief second, their eyes met through the fence. He smiled just faintly, then turned away. That evening, Emma uploaded everything again, this time with a new headline. It wasn't just our landlord, it's an entire network. The video blew up overnight. News anchors debated, activists shared it, lawsuits followed. Birchwood Holdings denied everything, calling her a liar, but the internet didn't let go this time. She became a symbol, a quiet face of resistance against corruption, hiding behind property deals and safety codes. Jack worried it would bring trouble, but Emma wasn't afraid anymore. Some nights she still dreamed of fire, the sound of cracking wood, the smoke curling through the air, but now, in her dreams, the fire wasn't destroying her home. It was cleansing something darker. 6 months later, a courthouse in downtown Fairfield. Emma sat in the back row watching as lawyers exchanged folders and whispered. A man in a gray suit, the same one from the construction site, sat at the defense table. The judge entered, the bailiff called the case. United States versus Birchwood Holdings et al. Emma's heart pounded. The prosecutor stood. Your Honor, the prosecution intends to submit Exhibit 47, a series of recordings provided by a civilian witness, Mrs. Emma Reed. All eyes turned to her. She stood, clutching the USB drive that had once belonged to Robert Hale. The room was silent except for the click as the file began to play, Hale's voice echoing through the speakers. You think the world's fair, you think I built all this by playing fair. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Emma felt tears sting her eyes, not sadness but relief. Robert's voice, the man who had tried to erase them, was now evidence against everything he'd stood for. After the hearing, Emma stepped outside into the sunlight. Reporters shouted her name, microphones thrust forward. She kept walking through the courthouse steps down into the city street. Jack met her there. You did it. She smiled faintly. We did. He slipped his hand into hers. So what now? Emma looked up at the skyline, cranes rising, new buildings reflecting the morning sun. Now, she said softly, we build something honest. But later that night, as the world moved on and the news cycle shifted, a message arrived in her inbox. No sender, no subject. Just a single attachment. A photo taken from a distance of Emma and Jack standing outside the courthouse. And beneath it, one line. Every fire starts with a spark. Emma stared at the screen, pulse quickening, a cold understanding settling in her chest. The story wasn't over. Not yet.